I'm going to work this sampler and talk about Jess the cat.
I have a sampler here that I'm going to do. This one though, I have turned inside out and I'm about to sew around the edges because this one is not going to be incorporated into something else. I'm just going to use it as a loose cloth. I want the stitching around the edge to leave a fairly even amount of white, and the three sides are fairly even, but this one side is bigger. So I have just put a line down there with an iron off pen, and it'll be on the inside anyway. I've used this iron off pen, which is a brand that I haven't used before, so I thought I would just try it and see what it's like. It was a little bit blotty when I first started it, but I think it'll be okay. So I'm just going to put that on my machine and sew around there.
As you go around the fourth side, don't quite go to your beginning, leave a few inches opening so that you can turn it through. There's my opening, and now I'm just going to trim off all the four corners with a pair of sharp scissors. Be careful not to cut through the stitching on the corner though. And then find the opening that you've left and use it to turn it through to the right side. Pay special attention to the corners, make sure that you push them out so they're all nice and square. And then along the edges, finger press down along that seam so that when you take it to the iron, there isn't little bits tucked inside the edges, it all folds out nice and flat. I'm just pressing along the seam there with my thumb to finger press it. So this is Jess now getting into one of his crazy positions. He's quite a mischievous little thing, always getting up into my sewing. And I'll show you some more pictures of him. So I'm smoothing this all out along the seam so it lays nicely. And I'm making sure all the corners will make a nice pointy corner. This is where I left the opening for turning, so I'm going to fold these edges in now so that they're all nice and lined up smoothly, and then I'll press them in place. I've ironed this piece now so that all the seams are laying flat and the corners are pointed out nicely. Where the opening is, I've pressed the sides inwards so it's ready to sew, and you want to make sure that the side is all in a nice straight line. To close this opening, I'm just going to use a slip stitch. I'm going to make sure my opening is lined up nicely. I'm just using some white matching thread and starting with a knot. So I'm pushing my needle up through a fold and then lining it up. And the needle needs to go back in the opposite side of the fabric, and you put the needle back in just opposite where the thread came out, and then the travelling of the needle goes underneath in the fold of where it's joined, and then that way only the tiniest little bit of the thread shows on the outside, and you have an almost invisible closing on your opening. Yeah, I'm just trying to get this closer up here where you can see this a bit better. You see your travelling is going along the fold, and you really won't be able to see these stitches just about when it's finished. So Jess is a stray. He was a little kitten living outside, and he was frightened you couldn't get close to him, but we got a long distance photo and advertised him. Nobody claimed him. It was January, it was cold, and here he is creeping into the house for the first time, very frightened. See, they really don't hardly show at all. So I'll just finish going along this little bit. We put Jess in the laundry for the night, where he could get water and food, and the dogs couldn't get close to him and frighten him. But by the next day, he was out and playing with the dogs and making himself at home. He's like a different kitten. And then this photo here shows how at home he was. This is 2 days later, and he's just laying on my husband's chest, and I think they're both sleeping. So that's all finished, and I don't think you could pick that out from the part that's been machined. Actually, it just really doesn't show, so I'm quite happy with that. So now we're ready to go on and do the Sashiko, and I'm going to go around the outside line first. This is the thread that I got. It's kind of a variegated blue and purplish colours. Looks quite nice on the roll. This is the brand Hidamari, or I think Lessian, you could find it under. And I've kept the package because I only bought one reel, and I think I might need two, and the number is on the package, so I'll be able to go back and get more if I need it. I'm just going to thread my needle, and once that's done, I'll start on this top stitching. I'm not going to start this with a knot. I'm going to make it so it's invisible and looks good on both sides. I'm just threading my needle between the two layers so that the end of the thread will be disappear into the centre of the two pieces of fabric. And then I'm going to go down through the stitch, and what you're actually doing is you're doing a couple of smaller stitches, and you're going to go in the direction opposite to what you would work the fabric. So once you get those two stitches in, then, well, I'll just do those, and then I'll tell you what you do next, because then you're going to turn the fabric. And so what you're actually doing is you're working exactly over the stitches that you've made, and that way you won't be able to tell really. The stitch is slightly thicker, but overall you just really can't tell when the stitching's finished. You do want to do this quite carefully to really make sure that it doesn't show. And of course the stitch lines are marked along the edge of this pattern, and so it's easy for me to put my point in and out where I can see that it needs to go. And now I'm going to turn the fabric round, and this is where I just do stitches over the top of the stitches that I've just made. And now really you're just sewing it in the normal way you would do any Sashiko. So do your few stitches, then do your tension control, and the result will be pretty good. So I'm just giving a close-up there so that you can see how that really doesn't show that there's two layers there. Once it's all the rest of your stitching's done, it really won't be noticeable. I'm just going to go along and do my Sashiko all around the edge here. I've started my sampler here. I'm just going around the edge at the moment, but I'm about to end and restart some thread, so I thought I'd show you how to do that. I'm going to go in here, and I'm not going through the bottom of the fabric to the underneath. Let me pull that apart a little bit to make it easier. And I'm going to do a couple with small stitches there. Now I've done those, I'm going to turn it around. And this time I'm going to do a normal kind of a stitch. So this one I'm doing a small normal stitch, and I'm going to come back up just this side of that little bit smaller stitch, and now I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to sew back, and I'm just going to do 3 normal stitches. I'm going to do them individually because I want to make sure that I cover and go exactly where at the point that I want to go in and out. That's 2, and then when I go into this one, I'm just going to go through the fabric. I'm not coming back out the other side. I'm just going through, and then I'm going to come up here close to this stitch, and that's just to disguise the fact that the thread is under the fabric a little bit, because it'll show through otherwise. And then I'm going to cut that off. So that's finished. It'll be held in place, but really it doesn't show very much, and it doesn't show on the back any different either. That's just a little bit that I've done up to now, so I'll continue around, and then I'll come back when I start the first row of my Sashiko that's in the middle. I haven't got any pins in here or basting stitches. If you're worried about it moving out of position, you could do that. And also, if you feel more comfortable sewing from the centre, that would be fine. Works either way. This is Jess and Mariko getting to know each other for the first time when we first got them. And he's settled down. We took him to the vets and got him checked out and shots and got him fixed, and he's just a happy cat. He's affectionate and he's good, and they soon turned into partners in crime though. Here they are messing up the couch. So I'll just finish going along here, and then I'll come back and show you when I've done some more. So I thought I'd just show you how I'm getting on here. I really like these colours. I've been working backwards and forwards across the rows, as you can see. And up to now, I'm pleased with it. I think it's going to look nice. So this cone of thread, I don't think I'm going to have enough. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to go and buy another one. We'll keep working with it for the moment and see. I don't really like doing the rows where the stitches are a double length, like this row here. So I'm going to continue again off camera, and I'll bring it back and show you when I've got all this part done and I'm starting to go in the other direction.
I've got all the stitches in one direction done, just backwards and forwards along the whole size of this. I like the way it's looking. I really like this thread. It doesn't quite look as bright as it did on the original roll, which I've almost emptied this roll, so it's a bit hard to tell now. But I think the colour looks a little bit different on the fabric, and I like it better actually. And I did go and buy a second reel of this because clearly one is not going to be enough. I'm actually not sure if 2 will be enough, but we'll see as time goes on. So what I'm going to do now is start working in the opposite direction. So we've done it all this way. Now we're going to go backwards and forwards. So I'm going to start sewing here. Got my thimble on. And these actually are the same stitches, just in the opposite direction. I'm going to just continue to be careful always hit the corners that I'm trying to do. This is the double length stitch, which throughout I've just found harder to do. For some reason, I just don't like to do big stitches, I guess. Which is kind of funny because I'm planning on making doing a big stitch quilting project. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to go, but we'll see when we get there. So I was telling you about Jess, and I showed you a picture of him first coming in the door, and so he started to settle down really quickly. Here he is, he's come out, he's just sitting in a chair, he's not really bothered about anybody, which is quite surprising for a cat that was so afraid the night before. Then here he is with Mariko, and these two got to be really big buddies, and they would play fight, and I'll show some video of that later. At this point, he's all, good to go. It takes quite a while, this. I've been working on it for a few days off camera, because obviously nobody wants to sit here and watch while I sew the whole thing. Although I say that, and actually I quite like when I watch other people doing Sashiko. Something very relaxing about just watching somebody doing stitching. It's really quite interesting, but I'm not sure that everybody thinks like me. I'm just going to do this little bit, and then again I'll get off camera and work on this. So here's some video of Mariko and Jess doing their play fighting thing. And at first, I didn't know what Callie would make of him because she's old and she doesn't really want to play anymore. So basically, the dogs just really didn't take that much notice of him at first. But he wanted to be friendly with the dogs, and he would go up to them all the time and kind of meet and greet them. And they're used to cats because we have had cats always while we've had the dogs. I have one picture here where he just gets himself stretched out on Callie's back, and he just looks like he just rules the place already. Quite funny. So even though these are long stitches, I still did a tension control each time. I'm at the end of the row now. And of course this row is back to the normal sized stitches. Quite time consuming to make sure that you, or try to make sure that you always hit these in exactly the right spot. Because if you don't, it just doesn't give the right effect. But, nobody's perfect. So occasionally I may make one that's not quite right. That just adds to the individuality of the project, really, makes it unique to you. Although you try your best to make it perfect, perfection's kind of hard to achieve. I'm almost at the end of my thread here, so it's about time to finish this off and rejoin some new to it. So just show you that bit where I've sewn to, if you can see that. And then I'll go and continue making this. So I've got all the horizontal rows and all the vertical rows on this completed now. And I like the effect. I think it looks pretty good. So all I've got left now are these diagonal rows. And I'm going to go along the center just because that's the point that I got to. So I'm just going to come out, well, I've already come out here at the start of this vertical row. And I'm going to sew down there. Now these diagonal rows are a little bit different. The others kind of formed squares and a more intensive sewing. So I think this is not going to take as long as the other ones did. And also these are quite big stitches. And, again, I don't really like doing big stitches, but that's the pattern. So that's what we're doing. And Jess has settled down now. Our other cat, Daisy, she's not too fond of him. I think a lot of it is because she is old. We aren't actually sure how old she is.
And because he was a playful kitten, you know, he'd want to jump on her and things, and she didn't really want to be jumped on and play. And so they tolerate each other, but I wouldn't say that they're big friends. All the relationships have kind of changed. So Mariko and him were best buddies at first because they were both, you know, she was still a puppy and he was a kitten, and they would do that play fighting and things all the time. But now they're still friendly, but they don't play like that anymore. But Jess absolutely loves the dogs. He loves the dogs much more than he loves us, actually. He will just go up, especially, but more to Sabby than anybody. And if she's walking around, he'll just go over there and he'll rub his head against her. And if she goes out in the garden and he's outside, he'll run straight up to her and fuss over her. And Sabby looks like she tolerates it. I wouldn't say that she returns the affection, but she lets him do it. And he does do the same to the other dogs, but it's much more with Sabby. And, you know, he's a good cat in other ways as well. He knows his name, and if he's outside, you know, he will come when he's called. So, actually, he comes better than Mariko, who's quite a stubborn little thing and only comes when she's called if she thinks she will. So I would just say it was a really good day when Jess, you know, came into the house and came into our lives, really. He's definitely been a bonus. Even if he gets up here and messes in my sewing when I don't need him to, and sits on my fabric and my cutters and just gets all up in the way. It's this line here is the one that I've just been doing. And I still don't know if I'm going to have enough thread. My cotton reel is getting on the low side, but as I say, this is not as an intensive a section to stitch as the other. And I don't think it's going to take me very long, this part. Maybe tomorrow or the next day, I think that I'll be done with it. So when I get done with it, I will come back and finish showing you it.
I've almost finished this Sashiko piece that I'm doing here. I just have a few stitches left. I just need these few stitches here. And I've used every single little bit of 2 reels of thread. This is my last little piece of thread, and I'm actually not sure if there's enough here. So I'm just going to sew this little bit, and then I'll see. If there's not enough, I may have to buy another reel of Sashiko thread. Starting with a knot and pulling it into in between the rows here. I don't have enough thread to do any backwards and forward stitches. I'm just really struggling to finish this at this point. Hoping that just will pop through into the set. Yeah, there it goes. I can hear it. So I'm actually going to finish this off, and I'm just going to finish with a little bit of footage of Jess and the dogs, showing you just how much Jess loves the dogs and probably how not very interested Sabby in particular is in that. But I hope you've liked this, and let's see. Is the test, is it going to reach? I hope so. Oh, it is. All right. Wow, that was a close thing. Although if I'd have had to buy another reel, you know, I'd have used it up on something else. So I've got that much thread, one last stitch to put in there and finish it off, and I'll be all done. So I'll finish that off in just a second. But while I'm on here, I did want to just show you what the back looks like. And I did try to make it so that it looked as nice on the back as the front. The pattern does look different, but I tried not to put any knots on the back or let the thread pass through where I, you know, passed it between the layers. I think it looks okay. And you definitely can see how the colour variation is of the thread on the back there. That's that project all finished.